もうこっから崖か。
Through my terror ran curious reminiscences of Paradise Lost, and of Satan's hideous climb through the unfashioned realms of darkness. As the moon climbed higher in the sky, I began to see that the slopes of the valley were not quite so perpendicular as I had imagined.
まさか行くの?
Ledges and outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent, whilst after a drop of only a few hundred feet, the declivity became very gradual.
マジか。
Urged on by an impulse which I cannot definitely analyze, I scrambled with difficulty down the rocks and stood on the gentler slope beneath.
なんで降りちゃったの? なんかうっすらなんかない?
Gazing into the Stygian deeps, where no light had yet penetrated. All at once, my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, which rose steeply about 100 yards ahead of me. An object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending moon.
進むか?
That it was merely a gigantic piece of stone, I soon assured myself. But I was conscious of a distinct impression that its contour and position were not altogether the work of nature.
いや、好奇心は身を滅ぼすん
A
じゃないのか?
closer scrutiny filled me with sensations I cannot express.
もうあれ見るしかないのか?
For despite its enormous magnitude and its position in an abyss which had yawned at the bottom of the sea since the world was young, I perceived beyond a doubt that the strange object was a well-shaped monolith, whose massive bulk had known the workmanship and perhaps the worship of living and thinking creatures. Dazed and frightened, yet not without a certain thrill of the scientist's or archaeologist's delight, I examined my surroundings more closely.
いや、やめた方がええやろ。まあ他にやることもないんだろうけど。
The moon, now near the zenith, shone weirdly and vividly above the towering steeps that hemmed in the chasm, and revealed the fact that a far-flung body of water flowed at the bottom, winding out of sight in both directions and almost lapping my feet as I stood on the slope. Across the chasm, the wavelets washed the base of the Cyclopean monolith, on whose surface I could now trace both inscriptions and crude sculptures.
なんかね、いろいろ模様が書いてあるけど。いやー、ここでもう折り返そうぜ。
The writing was in a system of hieroglyphics unknown to me and unlike anything I'd ever seen in books.
いやー、だってなあ、真ん中におるで、あいつっぽいのがさ。
Consisting for the most part of conventionalized aquatic symbols such as fishes, eels, octopi, crustaceans, mollusks, whales, and the like. Several characters obviously represented marine things which are unknown to the modern world, but whose decomposing forms I had observed on the ocean-risen plain. It was the pictorial carving, however, that did most to hold me spellbound.
これだな。エンディングを台無しにしないに詳細はスキップしよう。ありがとうございます。そうですね。ちょっと、一旦は物語に集中しましょうか。
Across the intervening water, on account of their enormous size, were an array of bas-reliefs whose subjects would have excited the envy of a Doré.
まあいいや。
I think that these things were supposed to depict men, at least a certain sort of men. Though the creatures were shown disporting like fishes in the waters of some marine grotto.
これさ、あれ、あいつ、名前ど忘れしちゃった。サブノーチカ。サブノーチカで、俺、こいつによく攻撃された記憶があるんだが、なんか似てるよね。
Or paying homage at some monolithic shrine, which appeared to be under the waves as well. Of their faces and forms I dare not speak in detail.
マジで。
For the mere remembrance makes me grow faint.
いや、産地ピンチ。
Grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a bulwark.
詳しく書き記すのはやめておこうをビジュアルで表現すると、ちょっとあれだね、困っちゃうね。
They were damnably human in general outline, despite webbed hands and feet, shockingly wide and flabby lips, glassy, bulging eyes, and other features less pleasant to recall. Curiously enough, they seem to have been chiseled badly out of proportion with their scenic background. For one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale, represented as but little larger than himself.
相当でかいな。
I remarked, as I say, their grotesqueness and strange size, but in a moment decided that they were merely the imaginary gods of some primitive fishing or seafaring tribe. Some tribe whose last descendant had perished eras before the first ancestor of the Piltdown or Neanderthal man was born. Awestruck at this unexpected glimpse into a past beyond the conception of the most daring anthropologist, I stood musing whilst the moon cast queer reflections on the silent channel before me. Then, suddenly, I saw it.
何どれ
With only a slight churning to mark its rise to the surface,
これか。
the thing slid into view above the dark waters. Loathsome, it darted like a stupendous monster of nightmares to the monolith, about which it flung its gigantic scaly arms, while it bowed its hideous head and gave vent to certain measured sounds. I think I went mad then. Of my frantic ascent of the sloping cliff and of my delirious journey back to the stranded boat, I remember little. I believe I sang a great deal and laughed oddly when I was unable to sing.
おかしくなっちゃったね。
I have indistinct recollections of a great storm sometime after I reached the boat. At any rate, I know that I heard pearls of thunder and other tones which nature utters only in her wildest moments. When I came out of the shadows, I was in a San Francisco hospital.
え
Brought thither by the captain of the American ship which had picked up my boat in mid-ocean.
すげえ興奮だな。
In my delirium, I had said much, but found that my words had been given scant attention. Of any land upheaval in the Pacific, my rescuers knew nothing.
は
Nor did I deem it necessary to insist upon a thing which I knew they could not believe.
あ。はあ。まあそりゃな。証拠もなんもないしね。
Once I sought out a celebrated ethnologist and amused him with peculiar questions regarding the ancient Philistine legend of Dagon, the fish god.
ダゴン出てきたね。古代ペリシテ人。 こ見ればいいんだ。あれか。
But soon perceiving that he was hopelessly conventional, I did not press my inquiries.
学者が救いようがないほど伝統的であること。まあもう、伝説みたいなもんだからしょうがないってこと？あれか。今度は何？どれだ？後ろか。後ろか。ちょっと待って、こっちに寄ってきた意味はなんかあるんじゃないのか？あんまないのか？なんもね
え。It is at night, especially when the moon is gibbous and waning, that I see the thing.
完全にトラウマになっちゃってるね。
I tried morphine.
なるほどね。もう恐怖でおかしくなっちゃったんで、モルヒネ打ったんだ。別にもともと薬中なわけではないんだね。
But the drug has given only transient surcease, and has drawn me into its clutches as a hopeless slave.
仕事辛くてストロングゼロを飲むみたいなもんだ。
So now I am to end it all, having written a full account for the information or the contemptuous amusement of my fellow men.
すべてを終わらせる。
Often I ask myself if it could not all have been a pure phantasm, a mere freak of fever as I lay sun-stricken and raving in the open boat after my escape from the German man of war. This I ask myself, but ever does there come before me a hideously vivid vision in reply. I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may at this very moment be crawling and floundering on its slimy bed, worshipping their ancient stone idols and carving their own detestable likenesses on submarine obelisks of water-soaked granite. I dream of a day when they may rise above the billows to drag down into their reeking talons the remnants of puny, war-exhausted mankind. Of a day when the land shall sink and the dark ocean shall ascend amidst universal pandemonium. The end is near.
何の音？
I hear a noise at the door, as of some immense slippery body lumbering against it.
扉塞いでんのか。いや、見たくないな。なんか窓から逃げれない。そういうゲームじゃないんだよな。
It shall not find me. God, that hand! The window! The window! なるほどね。はい、というわけでタイトルに戻ってきました。ちょっと今更ですけど本編
ゲーム音大きかったかもしれないんですけど、ちょっとご容赦ください。というわけで、まあ、冒頭でも述べたんですけど、自分、ラブクラフトの小説読んだことなかったんですけど、こういう感じなんですね。まあ、ちょっとこのダゴンがどのぐらい原作を忠実に再現しているのかちょっとわからないですけど、こう、得体の知れない恐怖みたいなものが、ね、多分きっとうまく表現されてたんじゃないかなと思います。はい。では、以上、ダゴンでした。お疲れ様でした。